Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Mike Force Podcast. Appreciate you guys' feedback on my Preaching to the Choir episode. Every Sunday, I do the Sunday edition of the podcast. On PTC, yesterday, we talked about feeling defeated and just trying to keep it real. I mean, not every day I wake up with energy, super excited to tackle the world. Actually, I wake up sometimes more often than not, more often than I care to acknowledge out loud, which I'm doing right now. And I'm just not happy. Given the burden of dealing with all this shit, because it's shit, as a grown adult, contending with the fallouts of a disgruntled ex-girlfriend, fighting for my children's involvement of their father in their life. It's not fun. I don't think it's fun for anybody. But you would think as grown adults, we kind of work through this and just, hey, let's not do this. Let's not spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and lose everything because we don't get along. But again, these are the woes. These are the issues in a first world country. In a third world country, like in Nigeria, if I did preaching in the choir, I'd be more concerned about getting my head lobbed off. I could contend with that because I could fight it. But in America, because we have it's so good, we have to manufacture problems. And then there's a whole entire cyclic process, a full circle process of microeconomies thriving off of these grievances between people. I pay $500 a week just to interact with my children. Super fun. If you're not watching this, I give you a thumbs up. If you're listening to me on Spotify, welcome. If you're watching my fat face on YouTube, welcome. I'll have the Monday edition of this podcast and the uncensored version of this dropping on my Patreon. You guys could subscribe to it. The link's down below. It's called Monday Sit Rep on my Patreon. Today we're talking about Antifa. Antifa. You want to cheer yourself up? Talk about an organization of radicals who, again, they don't like to be called leftist because apparently they're not. They're anti-fascist, or basically, as they identify as everyone in the government and everyone in control or everyone in a position of authority as a fascist, then down with Western civilization, because that's what they're against. So today we are diving deep into the topic that's been the center of a lot of controversy for years. I've been talking about it since 2018-19. We're going to talk about how they operate and what does it actually mean that they've been labeled or designated. Designated is the word. A domestic terrorist organization. At the White House roundtable with cabinet members, the President of the United States entertained the option of calling them an international terrorist organization because they potentially have links to international players. So there's a lot of noise around this topic. Like, let's be honest. It's very popular right now to talk about Antifa, which is why I'm doing it, of course. But some people see Antifa as a movement fighting against evil. Evil. And they see them as heroes, while others see them as violent agitators hell-bent on anarchy. But the truth is somewhere in between. It's complicated. Let's break it down. So let's talk about the origins of Antifa. When I started paying attention to them, along with not the Bureau of Land Management, the other one, I started to realize, wow. So let's get this straight. If you're a person and you go out and you throw a Molotov cocktail at a law enforcement officer or a private business, or really, if you're just holding one and you throw it at anybody in America, well, that's a crime. But if you're in a group representing change because you want to defeat fascism, well, then you have amnesty. I mean, we saw what happened in Seattle and Portland, ironically, the same place that they say is all peaceful, a utopia, a Narnia of civilization, according to the radical governor and mayor of Portland, Oregon. Antifa is short, if you didn't know this, you should know it, short for anti-fascist. It isn't a single group. Apparently, it's an idea that dates back nearly a century. The original anti-fascist movement emerged in Europe in the 1930s, fighting against Mussolini, who, if you haven't heard the story of how Mussolini in Italy was tracked down and executed with his spouse, pretty gnarly event in history. But he was a fascist. He abused his power. Him and Hitler were on the same team. If you didn't realize it, in World War II, we didn't go to war just against Germany. We often forget Japan for some reason. And we also forget Italy's role. In the U.S., Antifa reemerged after 2016 during a rise in far-right organizing and white nationalist rallies. Now, I haven't seen a lot of that on any press or media, but apparently that's what happened. They started emerging against these organizations, and the modern Antifa movement draws from anarchist and far-left, let's just say traditions, in air quotes, traditions, like people who reject fascism, racism, and authoritarianism. Now, we should be very transparent in saying that words have new meanings. You've heard the saying, words have meanings. Well, words now have new meanings. So everybody, for example, the governor of Illinois, everybody, for example, that doesn't like the president or the administration or Republicans, they just call him Nazi. They call him Hitler or the Gestapo or compare them to Nazi Germany. One, because it's so easy to be historically illiterate and you just vomit everything. And most of what you say to your base that's low IQ will believe it. I digress. Ideologically, Antifa believes fascism can't be debated. It has to be confronted directly. That's why some participants see confrontation or violence or anarchy as the only solution. So I thought about this a little bit with Antifa. And then I thought about, man, being anti-fascist would be a good thing as an underground auxiliary movement to protect people, for sure. But again, just like I said in the beginning of this, when you have no problems because everything's provided for you on a silver platter, it makes you wonder how much of the issues that we designate or define as issues are real issues. Are there fascists in this country? Is it fascism, for example, to go and provide military, which are federal troops, federalized troops, that work for the federal government of the United States of America to protect federal agents in cities and states that aren't doing it for themselves? It's funny to see the Portland chief of police and all of his smugness. It's also funny to see him at DEI rallies. Anyways, you see the Portland chief of police saying all of this is only a square block. Portland's 100+ square miles. Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then it should be real easy to, I don't know, enforce law and order in your city. Not allow people to pelt federal law enforcement vehicles with rocks. Or maybe, I don't know, if you're in Chicago, for example, and you're the chief of police, maybe it's not so hard to say that violent agitators who attack federal law enforcement will be arrested And not only that, but when federal law enforcement calls for a QRF, which they did, we won't deny them. And that's what happened. So again, how much of this is manufactured? So their tactics and operations are interesting. So they're very vocal and they're very open, overt about it. Not so much now, not so much since they've been designated. But Antifa tactics vary widely. Many actions are completely nonviolent, where they organize protest that typically turn into something else. But okay, I digress. Counter demonstrations, mutual aid, and educating the public about extremist groups. Then there's the militant side. Isn't there always the militant side? I think there's like a militant side to everything. Most people recognize from media this militant side. The militant side is like the side that's relevant. I mean, nobody gives a crap about an organization that's just going out there and doing their thing. That doesn't make headlines. What we care most about in the news is the violent agitators. So the black bloc tactic, dressing in all black, you've seen them. I mean, oh gosh, man, it's hard for me to do this objectively because these dudes are clowns. Let's just be honest. But let me continue. You remember the picture where they were all holding shields and they were all dressed in black, all 130 pounds of each of them, males? Their faces blacked out, moving as a coordinated unit like Oompa Loompas. Oompa Loompa, doompa dee doo. That song just resonates with me when I see that picture of them standing and doing that. But they defend against far-right rallies. That defense, I don't even know what that means, but that defense has migrated into just things they don't like, things they're not interested in. Sometimes that leads to property damage or clashes with police or protesters. More often than not, it's reported, but there's been many cases, especially during they called them, I am not calling them this, they called them the Antifa BLM riots. How many square blocks were burned down? How many millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of property damage was done? They also operate online. They got a cyber element. Antifa activists are known for doxing, exposing the identities of people they see as fascists or white supremacists. And they use social media to organize and spread information quickly. Dis, all kinds of information. Broad spectrum of info. Whether you agree with them or not, they are effective at mobilizing. I mean, seemingly, despite the disparity and decentralization of power. They use both street presence and online networks to shape narratives, mostly false, and disrupt events. When we think about Antifa and how they're organized, have you ever seen like their headquarters element, the bosses? No, you haven't. It's hard to estimate actually how many people are involved in Antifa. There are analysts who have looked at it, and they believe there are hundreds, if not thousands, across the United States. And they're actively concentrated in big cities like Portland, Seattle, New York, Chicago. I could go on, but you know the places because you know the players. I've, over the course of 6 years, have significant black-masked, black-wearing Antifa fatigue. I'm so fatigued by it all. Antifa has been sparking massive and fierce debates, which is why they were a designated terrorist organization, which we'll get into. But the real powers they have is not necessarily the numbers, because there's not a lot of them. It's the coordination. I remember reporting on this 6 years ago in 2019, before I started American Contingency, and the FBI went after me. I was talking about the coordination that was recorded of Antifa utilizing communications, where they show up, they have people who are C2ing, commanding and controlling. They organize these protests. They rapidly deploy bricks, for example, to cause all the mayhem and havoc. And then they disseminate their propaganda signs and all the things. It's very well organized, very fast. They build it up and then break it down, and then they're out. Now, Antifa sparks a lot of debate because supporters say they're the last line of defense, freedom fighters against violent white nationalists. I can't recall one time, actually in my history on this planet, where I've seen radical white nationalists, this alleged white nationalist, American History X version of violence on the streets in America. I can't recall one. If you have seen it because you're like tracking this stuff, let me know in the comments. All right, so in 2025, this year, only a couple months ago, the ball started rolling for Antifa to be called or labeled. It's not even labeled. It's designated a terrorist organization, which is a huge, huge thing. Because not only is Antifa labeled or designated, there's a whole line of operational context, including budgets, logistics, intelligence gathering and collection, network development, targeters, geolocation, surveillance, reconnaissance, all of these elements coming together to roll these dudes up. Because here's what's interesting is most of these guys, we already know who they are. They go out all the time, the same actors, the same players on the same cell phones, and now they're terrorists. So if you are a member because you have worn the shirt, the helmet, the black mask, the weird shield you've held, I don't know. Well, you better just like move on with your life. But if you double down, which a lot of people do, then you are going to be treated as a terrorist, which means you're going to be found, fixed via your location, and then rolled up. It's already happening. Under U.S. law, there's no formal mechanism for designating terrorist groups, domestic terrorist groups, as terrorist organizations the way there are foreign situations like ISIS or AQ. So the designation, although seemingly symbolic, is also lining out a whole bunch of operational clout to be able to go after these guys. The bigger concern here is the precedent, because when does it stop? I could tell you on the other side of this where this pendulum swings. It happens. It goes back and forth. If a Democrat gets in and decides he doesn't like a group, is he going to designate the group he doesn't like that's right-wing a terrorist organization? Well, he already did. Biden labeled militia, violent extremist, domestic terrorist organizations or domestic groups, MVEs. He also did surveillance on these groups. He also named many people, including Republicans, and tapped their cell phones. Actually, 9 GOP senators were tapped. It might have included some members of Congress, but mostly I recall members of the Senate. So, wait a minute. So, on one side, we're saying, hey, this is a precedent, but the reality is the Biden administration has been doing this, including naming me and my group, AmericanContingency.com, a domestic terrorist organization or militia violent extremists. It's another kind way of saying terrorist organization. And I was told from the FBI directly that I was on that list. Now, that pendulum will swing one day to the left, and when it does, are we setting a whack precedent? I don't think so. Because when you look at groups like BLM and Antifa and their designated role in, I don't know, protesting and standing up for black people and, calling out fascists. Well, if you're doing that, that's fine. But the second that you start committing crimes and that becomes part of your organization, well, you're part of an organized crime syndicate, a racketeering operation. So labeling them a domestic terrorist organization, I think, is appropriate in this. What do you guys think? I think it's appropriate because, one, when you look at the circumstance, when you look at their agenda and their main mission, it's to destroy Western civilization. They don't believe in freedom because everybody in control, no matter who they are, they had beef with Biden. No matter what position you're in, if it's part of the U.S. government, well, then you're a fascist. And down with you. It's so funny seeing those guys operate and they're communicating on iPhones. And they're wearing like designer brand clothes. And they likely live in an apartment, house, whatever. So it's like, okay, you're a participant in this and you're just going along and with all your amenities, but you're anti-fascist against very selective individuals. But down with democracy. That's, I think, the issue here. Also, the anarchy component, which is violence and property damage against people. These are people who have lives. 50% of the businesses burned down in Atlanta during these same protests happen to be black businesses. Interesting. Very interesting. I want to go off on a tangent about something. Our friends at Noble Gold are the one and only gold company that I have a high level of confidence in because friends have used it. I've looked into all the research, and it allows you to not just invest wholly into gold, but diversify. The way they do it is they take a portion of your retirement savings and migrate it into a gold-backed IRA. If you've seen the price of gold, it's done this all the way to the top. I think it's $3,900+ an ounce right now, which is crazy because it was half of that a little while ago. So if you go to the link down below in the description to noblegoldinvestments.com, at the end of the day, it just makes sense to diversify. Like, why would you not diversify? So check them out at noblegoldinvestments.com and get your free gold guide and get their free advice on your retirement investments. No commitment necessary. Again, that's noblegoldinvestments.com. So what happens now? We'll likely see increased surveillance, prosecutions of targets across the country for these guys. They're actually rolling up a lot of them in these protests that are peaceful or mostly peaceful. And pressure on social media, especially for these social media companies that are promoting and advocating for Antifa by using the algorithm to push their crap all over the place. It could also push their movement underground, which I think is already happening in a way. And it's going to make it harder to de-escalate and also find these guys. Politically, it's going to deepen the divide, but I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that? I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, Antifa isn't just an organization. It's a reaction. It's a stain. It's what happens when you don't wipe your butt for a period of time. You get Antifa skid marks in your underwear. That's what happens. It's like to fix the problem, you just need to get back to basics, which is hygiene. But if you continue to roll the same way that you roll, you're always going to have shit stains. Yeah, I don't like them. And I'm glad they were added to the terrorist watch list. That's my opinion. What's your opinion? Leave your opinion down in the comments down below. And is this going to last? Or when we get into another cycle of a political shift, is the pendulum just going to swing back the other way? Let me know what you think down below. That's the fear for me. And this whole experiment, this game we're playing, is the pendulum is going to swing back harder and faster. And who knows what we're going to get, man. It's going to be crazy. I appreciate you guys. Hope you have a good week. Until next time, peace.